So, C.S. Lewis is really overrated in my mind. Now, before you all take out your pitchforks and come after me, let me explain what I mean. Lewis is a very interesting figure, and he has a lot of valuable things to say. I especially like his works of fiction. Some of his nonfiction works are great, of course. I think, stuff like well, in terms of fiction, obviously like the Space Trilogy. I'm reading it for the first time right now. I like it so far. Chronicles of Narnia is great. I love Screwtape Letters. And in terms of nonfiction, he has some good stuff. I mean, like Mere Christianity is one of those works that I actually do recommend everybody read. I think everybody should read that. So Mere Christianity, and then I actually really like his work on miracles. I think it's pretty good. The reason I say he's overrated is because, just by definition of being overrated, he fits the bill. And I think he would agree, because people have started using him in a way that I don't think he himself would support. From my understanding, Lewis understood himself as a kind of popularizer of the faith. He was not he did not try to be like a theologian in the proper sense, and he wasn't writing some super in-depth philosophy. He had some pretty good stuff, but he wasn't trying to be like a dogmatician or a full-on theologian or even, a full-on philosopher. He was trying to reach the common man, and he did a very good job of that. But unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people today walk into C.S. Lewis and just kind of stay there, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of people think he is the peak of Christian philosophical thought, when he's not. And he wouldn't say that. If you know, or if you can read, I think it's especially evident in Lewis's Miracles. He's a very well-read man. He's very well-read, and I'm sure that if he were to put out, say, dogmatic works, he would do a pretty good job in philosophical works. I'm sure he'd do just fine, at the very least. That wasn't his goal, and unfortunately people have made him into someone who he's not, right? Some people have made him into, like, oh my gosh, who's the absolute best guy to go for to understand Christian thought, or like the basics of Christianity? Go to Lewis, or, oh man, there are some atheist objections, who should I go to? Go to Lewis. It's like, I mean, I guess, he's good for the real basics of Christian thought and the real basics of, Christian philosophy, but he didn't intend to be super deep. At the end of his Mere Christianity, for example, he talks about how, you're in the hallway with Mere Christianity, you have to choose a door, which is an image to say that, okay, the basics of Christianity, but now you have to see what Christian group is correct, and you have to join it, right? A lot of people, unfortunately, have taken him to be like, oh, he's the, just believe in Mere Christianity, just believe what he says in these respects, and that's all. And he wouldn't support that. And I don't think he would support people who only read him and then neglect to read some very profound thinkers as well, like Athanasius or like Augustine. My edition of On the Incarnation actually had a foreword by Lewis, which was really interesting. So he's clearly pretty well read in Christian thought, and he does a great job of popularizing it. I think explaining the concepts, even for someone like me who, I read a lot of scholastics and all that. He does a really good job of taking those and kind of applying them and seeing it. Well, how would they work in your daily life? Because a lot of philosophical concepts, well, are by definition abstract, but he does a really good job of concretizing them, so to speak. But unfortunately, as I've said, I think a lot of people have started to view him as the go-to figure for Christian thought, when he's really not. He's a good guy to look for when, okay, you're just starting out reading theology for the first time. Yeah, I actually would recommend you go to Lewis. And if you hear, oh, an atheist has this objection to Christianity, or somebody has this objection in general to Christianity, if Lewis covers it, he's probably going to do a pretty good job. But a lot of people are like, okay, I've read C.S. Lewis, that's kind of all I need to know. And that is foolish at the greatest mark, so to speak. So it disappoints me, it saddens me, because I think there's so much good from him that unfortunately people have twisted him into someone who he's not. And that kind of distorts what he was trying to do, and I think it would distort his own image of himself. So what I typically recommend to people is, I say, if somebody asks me, hey, where do I start when I'm reading theology? I typically say a few things. It depends on, of course, their goal. It depends on, are they trying to say, you know, how do I learn about different denominations? That's one thing. But usually when somebody asks, how do I just first get into theology? Like, what do I recommend for people to first get into it? I typically say they should read Lewis's Mere Christianity, his Screwtape Letters. I also add J.C. Ryle's Thoughts for Young Men. I usually say Luther's Small Catechism and his Large Catechism. I actually do recommend those, regardless of tradition. Because even if you disagree, he has some good stuff in there regarding what you do agree. And then after that, you know, I just get into some more advanced stuff. I say Athanasius on the Incarnation, for one. And then I get into things like, you know, Justin Martyr's Apologies. So I think a lot of people have taken Lewis, unfortunately, and looked at him as this be-all, end-all of Christian thought, when he's really not, and he wouldn't think of himself that way either. So those are just a few thoughts for today. Let me know what you guys typically recommend to people, because I would love to have a good list of, like, when somebody asks me, because I have a lot of friends who are, they want to get into theology, and they aren't necessarily Lutheran, and they ask me, like, how do I first start reading? Besides, you know, reading scripture every day, just, if you guys can, like, let me know what books you typically recommend. It doesn't have to be Lutheran by any means. Yeah, thanks.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching another Scholastic Lutherans video. If you'd like to support us, you can contribute on Patreon or Subscribestar at Scholastic Lutherans. You'll get access to our Telegram chat, more content, and other perks. Links can be found in the description and in the pinned comments. Subscribe, like, or leave a comment, and have a nice day.